So today, the story of Moses gets really exciting. Very exciting. Even just to give you a picture, shows you how exciting it became. Those are some Egyptian people, and what's going on around them? It's flies. There are flies coming on all around them, and they had to go like this and slap them, and they couldn't get away from them. Well, actually, I got ahead of the story. But remember that picture, and remember and think about that kind of stuff, because it's where this story is going. Okay? This is what happened when Moses, with the help of his brother Aaron, went back to Egypt after Moses met God talking to him through a burning bush out in the desert while he was watching his sheep. Moses went back to Egypt to see the king. "Let God's people go," he said. But the king was very stubborn. You know what stubborn is? Stubborn is when you fold your arms and say, "No, you can't make me. No, I don't want to." Stubborn is when people just won't change their mind for some reason. And sometimes there's good stubborn, but most of the time there's bad stubborn. And this was definitely bad stubborn, because Moses was telling them that God wanted them to do something good, and they were saying no. The king was saying, "No, I'm not going to, and you can't make me." And that's where he made his mistake, because it turns out, let me read about that. The king was very stubborn. He refused to obey God's command. Moses wanted to show the king that God was with him. God sent many plagues upon the land. A plague is like a big problem. It's like something going bad everywhere around you. A plague is like what we're dealing with right now, with everybody getting sick if they're not careful, except it was more serious than that, because you couldn't get away from it, and you couldn't stay safe from it, like you're probably doing now. And when people say you can't go out and play, they're doing it for a good reason. You may not like it, but really it's for a good reason. And in Egypt, when the king said you can't leave, there was no place to get away from it. Things like this happened. God made all the water in the land turn into blood, and nobody could drink it. And even the fish could not live in the water. But the king would not let the people go. So God sent frogs. Here's a picture of some of the frogs. Can you see that? Just frogs everywhere. And God sent frogs, and they were all over the land. But the king would not let God's people go. Then he turned the dust on the ground into pesky gnats. Those are those tiny little insects, little things that flow around, and if they see a open soda can, they may be buzzing around. Gnats are those little things that they get under your collar and into your shirt, and you just itch, and they're everywhere, and if you're not careful, you breathe one in and you go, They were everywhere, big clouds of them. But the king would not let God's people go. God sent flies to Egypt. That's what that picture was about. Flies everywhere. For the next plague, the king sent for Moses. He said, "Your God is much too powerful. take your people and go away." The king also told Moses to take the flies away. But when Moses took the flies away, the king, remember, he was stubborn. The king changed his mind, and he made God's people stay. Next, God made the Egyptians and their animals sick. And the king would still not let God's people go. So God made hail fall on the ground. It ruined all of the Egyptians' food. The king said, "Enough!" Finally was beginning to change his mind. He said, "Enough! Go and take your people, Moses. Leave." But as soon as Moses left the king's palace, see, this is them talking. When the king says, "Go, leave, it's all right, get out of here, I don't want to see you again." But as soon as Moses did leave and left the king's palace, well, the king was stubborn and he changed his mind again. God was determined to show his power. For the next plague, locusts were sent to eat all the fruit on the trees. And the king said, "Take away all the pests, and then you may go." But the king did not keep his word. Even after God made complete darkness fall over the land for 3 days and 3 nights, 3 whole days and nights, nobody could see anything. The king would not let God's people leave. But there was something coming. And that wasn't the last of those plagues. And I'm going to tell you about what finally made the big difference tomorrow. Try not to be stubborn until then. And we'll pick up the story there.